Imagine a weapon so fast that by the time radar systems detect it, the window to respond has almost already closed. A weapon that crosses the distance of an entire city in the time it takes you to read a few sentences. Now imagine that this weapon doesn't simply travel in a straight line toward its target. Instead, it moves unpredictably, gliding through the atmosphere and changing direction while traveling faster than most defense systems were ever designed to track. Recent reports suggest that Iran has developed a missile capable of reaching speeds close to Mach 15. That is more than 11,000 miles per hour. At that velocity, the missile can travel nearly 4 miles every single second. If those claims are accurate, this technology represents a major shift in the balance of modern warfare, because when a weapon moves this quickly and can maneuver mid-flight, the systems designed to intercept traditional missiles suddenly face a challenge they were never built to handle. For decades, missile defense strategies around the world have been built around one basic assumption: that incoming missiles follow predictable paths. Traditional ballistic missiles launch into the sky, exit the atmosphere, or travel along a high arc, and then descend toward their target along a trajectory that can be calculated with powerful computers. Defense systems rely on radar and sensors to track that trajectory and predict where the missile will be at a specific moment. Once that location is calculated, interceptor missiles are launched to collide with the incoming threat at precisely the right point in space and time. It is an extremely complex process involving advanced radar, computing power, and precise timing, but it is fundamentally based on mathematics and physics that can be predicted. Systems like Patriot, THAAD, and Israel's Aero Defense Network were designed with this principle in mind. Their job is to analyze the missile's path and place an interceptor in that path before the incoming weapon reaches its target. For many years, this concept has been relatively effective against conventional ballistic threats. Hypersonic weapons, however, introduce a completely different challenge. Hypersonic missiles are generally defined as weapons capable of traveling at speeds greater than Mach 5, or 5 times the speed of sound. That alone is incredibly fast, but some of the latest developments in missile technology push those speeds much further. Reports surrounding Iran's newest missile claim it may be capable of reaching Mach 15. To understand the magnitude of that speed, consider that commercial airliners fly at roughly Mach 0.8. Fighter jets might reach Mach 2 or slightly higher during certain operations. A Mach 15 weapon travels many times faster than either of those. At that speed, distances shrink dramatically. A missile moving at Mach 15 could cross several hundred miles in just minutes. That means the time available for detection, identification, decision-making, and interception becomes extremely limited. But the speed itself is only one part of what makes hypersonic weapons so difficult to stop. The other major factor is maneuverability. Traditional ballistic missiles follow an arc determined largely by gravity and initial launch conditions. Hypersonic weapons, on the other hand, can glide through the atmosphere and adjust their direction during flight. Some designs use what is known as a hypersonic glide vehicle. This type of weapon is launched into the upper atmosphere using a rocket booster. Once it reaches a certain altitude and velocity, the glide vehicle separates and begins traveling at hypersonic speed while skimming along the edge of the atmosphere. Instead of following a predictable arc, it can change direction, alter altitude, and move along an unpredictable path toward its target. This maneuverability complicates interception because defense systems rely heavily on predicting where a missile will be in the future. If the missile can change course during flight, the prediction becomes far less reliable. Even a small deviation in trajectory can cause an interceptor missile to miss its target entirely. When you combine extreme speed with unpredictable movement, the interception challenge becomes significantly more difficult. Another factor that complicates detection and tracking is the intense heat generated during hypersonic flight. When an object moves through the atmosphere at extremely high speeds, friction with the air creates enormous temperatures around the vehicle. This heat can generate a plasma layer surrounding the missile. Plasma is a highly energized state of matter that can interfere with radar signals. In practical terms, this means that the radar systems used to track incoming missiles may experience difficulty maintaining a consistent lock on a hypersonic target. The radar waves can be partially absorbed or scattered by the plasma surrounding the missile, making it appear less stable or more difficult to track accurately. Even small interruptions in radar tracking can complicate the calculations required for interception. Defense systems need continuous, precise data to guide interceptor missiles to their targets. If that data becomes inconsistent, the margin for error grows larger. When a weapon is traveling at several miles per second, even a tiny error in prediction can translate into a massive missed distance. To appreciate how little time defenders may have to react, consider the sequence of events required for missile defense. First, sensors must detect the launch or the incoming missile. Then the system must determine whether the object is actually a threat. After that, computers calculate the missile's trajectory and determine where an interceptor should be set. The command must then be issued to launch the interceptor missile. Once launched, that interceptor must travel to the predicted intercept point and collide with the incoming weapon. Each step takes time. When dealing with traditional ballistic missiles, defense systems may have several minutes to complete this process. Against a hypersonic weapon traveling at Mach 15, that reaction window could shrink dramatically. In some scenarios, defenders might have less than a minute to detect a threat, analyze it, and attempt an interception. That compressed timeline places enormous pressure on both automated systems and human decision-makers. The development of hypersonic technology has become one of the most significant areas of military research in recent years. Several major powers, including the United States, Russia, and China, have invested heavily in hypersonic programs. The appeal of these weapons is clear. A missile that travels extremely fast, maneuvers unpredictably, and is difficult to intercept offers a powerful strategic advantage. It allows nations to potentially strike targets quickly, while reducing the likelihood that their weapon will be stopped by existing defenses. Reports suggest that Iran has been working on advancing its missile technology for many years. The recombination of domestic research, engineering innovation, and lessons learned from earlier missile programs. The country has steadily expanded its capabilities. Hypersonic technology represents the latest step in that evolution. Developing such weapons requires solving several major engineering challenges. Materials must be able to withstand extreme temperatures generated by hypersonic flight. Guidance systems must function reliably despite intense heat and potential plasma interference. Propulsion systems must deliver the enormous speeds required to reach and maintain hypersonic velocities. These challenges are difficult, but not impossible for determined research programs to overcome. If Iran has indeed achieved operational hypersonic capability, it would represent a significant milestone in its missile development efforts. The implications of such technology extend beyond a single region. Hypersonic weapons have the potential to influence global military strategy. One reason is that they compress decision-making timelines during conflicts. When weapons can reach their targets extremely quickly, leaders may have less time to evaluate information and respond. This increased speed can introduce new risks during periods of tension between nations. Another major implication involves the balance between offense and defense. For decades, many countries invested heavily in missile defense systems designed to protect cities, military bases, and strategic assets. Hypersonic technology challenges the effectiveness of some of those systems. If offensive weapons become significantly more difficult to intercept, the strategic advantage may shift toward nations that possess them. This dynamic could accelerate the development of new defensive technologies. Researchers are exploring several possible approaches to counter hypersonic threats. One concept involves directed energy weapons such as high-powered lasers. These systems could theoretically engage incoming missiles at the speed of light, eliminating the need to launch interceptor missiles. Another concept involves electromagnetic railguns capable of firing projectiles at extremely high velocities. Artificial intelligence and advanced computing may also play a role in improving detection and interception calculations. However, many of these potential solutions are still in the research or experimental stage. Developing reliable defenses against hypersonic weapons may take years or even decades. In the meantime, nations around the world are closely monitoring developments in hypersonic technology. The possibility that more countries could acquire similar capabilities has raised concerns about a growing hypersonic arms race. As one nation demonstrates progress in this field, others may feel pressure to accelerate their own programs in order to maintain strategic balance. The spread of hypersonic weapons could reshape military planning and defense strategies across multiple regions. Military planners must now consider scenarios in which extremely fast and maneuverable missiles could target critical infrastructure, military bases, or naval forces. The maritime domain presents particular challenges. Large naval vessels, including aircraft carriers, rely heavily on layered defense systems to intercept incoming missiles. Hypersonic weapons capable of maneuvering at high speeds could complicate those defensive strategies. If such missiles can approach from unexpected directions or change course rapidly, defending ships at sea becomes far more difficult. These possibilities have prompted many defense organizations to reevaluate existing strategies and invest in new technologies. Intelligence agencies also continue to study the development and deployment of hypersonic weapons. Key questions include how many such missiles may exist, how quickly they can be produced, and whether the technology could spread to additional countries or non-state actors. Understanding these factors will play an important role in shaping international security policies in the years ahead. The psychological impact of hypersonic weapons should not be underestimated either. For military personnel responsible for operating missile defense systems, the prospect of facing weapons that current defenses struggle to intercept presents a new set of challenges. For civilian populations living under potential threat, the idea of extremely fast and difficult-to-stop missiles may create new concerns about security. Governments and policymakers must navigate these realities carefully while communicating clearly with their citizens. Economic considerations also come into play. Developing advanced missile defense technologies requires substantial investment. Nations may face difficult decisions about allocating resources between offensive capabilities, defensive systems, and other priorities such as infrastructure or social programs. The emergence of hypersonic weapons adds another layer of complexity to these decisions. At the same time, industries involved in aerospace, defense technology, and advanced materials may see increased demand as research into hypersonic technologies expands. International cooperation and diplomatic efforts could also become important in addressing the risks associated with hypersonic proliferation. Traditional arms control agreements were designed around earlier generations of weapon systems. Hypersonic technology introduces new challenges for verification and regulation because these weapons combine elements of both ballistic missiles and advanced aircraft. Creating effective agreements that address these complexities may require new approaches and innovative diplomacy. Looking ahead, the broader significance of hypersonic weapons lies in how they reshape strategic thinking. Military doctrines that once relied on predictable timelines and defensive barriers must adapt to a world where certain weapons travel faster, maneuver unpredictably, and reduce reaction times dramatically. Whether these technologies ultimately become widespread or remain limited to a small number of nations will influence the future security landscape. For now, hypersonic missiles represent one of the most important technological developments in modern military science. They illustrate how advances in engineering, material science, and propulsion can dramatically change the nature of warfare. As research continues and new systems are developed, governments, analysts, and researchers will continue studying both the opportunities and risks associated with this technology. What remains clear is that the era of hypersonic weapons has already begun to shape discussions about global security. The question facing the world is not only who will develop these weapons, but also how nations will adapt their defenses, strategies, and policies in response to them. As the pace of technological change accelerates, understanding these developments becomes increasingly important. The emergence of hypersonic capabilities reminds us that military innovation can alter strategic realities faster than many people expect. And in an environment where speed can determine the outcome of critical decisions, the ability to anticipate and respond to new technologies may prove just as important as the technologies themselves.